What's going on, man? It's your big brother K-Rino. K-Rino. Um, y'all should be able to see by the title what we on right now. This is what we are on right now. And me being a artist in this music industry, um, stories like this always catch my attention. They always draw my interest because I've seen it happen to many artists, not just artists on major labels, not just established artists. I've seen it happen to people I know, people on independent labels, and you know, this is part of the business. And what I'm going to talk about is basically to explain the importance of ownership. And I talk about this a lot. Y'all know anybody that been rocking with me, rocking with my channel, y'all know I talk about ownership heavy in terms of being in this music business because it's so important, man. And a lot of times the things that we do early on, or the mind frames that we're in early on when we first come into the music business, um, it's an immature level that we on. And when I say immature, I don't mean like childish. I don't mean silly. I mean in terms of your understanding of how this thing works, in terms of our understanding of how this thing works. We're at a immature stage in that understanding because we come into the business young. We're trying to get on. We're trying to get established. And when we see a way to get in, we seem to put on blinders as it relates to taking care of our business early on. Some people are scared to really just talk the business, had a tough conversations about these parts of the business early because they fear that if they show too much knowledge, or they come off like they showing too much knowledge towards the label, towards the person, towards an investor, whoever, then they may lose the deal. See, they might lose the deal. I mean, I don't want to run these people off, so we just want to keep that down, man. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that when we deal with it. Well, yeah, actually, you will deal with it when you deal with it, but by the time you come into the understanding that you should have dealt with it right there on the spot, you've lost so much. So Morris Day in the time. Y'all hit the like button as you come in, man. Morris Day, the legendary Morris Day and his legendary group, The Time. If y'all are young and just or you may not be up on R&B music, you need to do some research on Morris Day and The Time. Many of you know who Prince is. Some of y'all ain't even up on Prince. A lot of this new generation, y'all don't even know the greatness of Prince. And it's weird because he's such an icon in this industry, and in terms of a pioneer, and in terms of somebody who um, was a leading force in terms of ownership based on what he went through, and I'll get into that. But Morris Day was a friend of Prince that grew up with him in Minneapolis, and the group, The Time, was a group that Prince took under his wing, and Prince basically formed the group uh, in the early '80s, and Prince did all the writing, did all the production, all the arranging, like he does, and he got The Time on. He put The Time on. He put March Day and The Time on. When I say The Time is the name of the group. So y'all may be familiar with names like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who went on later to produce for Janet Jackson and other well-known artists. They had a lot of top tier musicians in that band. Now, um, if you ever seen the movie Purple Rain, that was Prince's first movie named after his iconic album Purple Rain from the early '80s. The antagonist in that movie, meaning Prince's opposition, the guy who was going against Prince, the bad guy in the movie, that was Morris Day. That was Morris Day. And he performed a lot of his songs and the Time songs in that movie. Later on, they did a sequel to Purple Rain, that was called Graffiti Bridge. I think that may have came out in 90, early 90s, somewhere up in there. And Morris Day revised that role as the antagonist of Prince. So Prince and Morris Day have a long, long history, and it's a up and down history. It's bittersweet. You know, they've had good moments, they've had contentious moments because that's just the nature of the game. And the bigger that Prince got, you know, Prince had to come into the understanding himself that, look, man, it's about ownership. He actually went through a real public situation with Warner Brothers behind the ownership of his own name and likeness that they owned. So fast forward, here we are in 2022, and Prince, who passed away in 2016, didn't leave a will. Prince was not married when he passed away. He didn't leave a will, and he had no children. So when that happens, I don't know how they do it in other states, but from what I read in the state of Minneapolis, what they did was they said, well, his estate is rightfully given to whatever heirs, whatever relatives that he has left. In this particular case, he had 6 brothers and sisters. So the estate of Prince was divvied up, was split up between his 6 brothers and sisters. Now, fast forward to Morris Day, who all that time, even when Prince was alive and even years after Prince was alive, he's still performing, still doing shows under the name Morris Day and the Time. I've been to a Morris Day show in recent years, and you know they still had it and they still got it. And now this story comes out that the estate, which is the family, are saying that Morris Day can no longer use his own name. Because I looked it up. I had to look it up first because I know that people will give themselves, you know, name. It's not just rappers. We ain't the only ones that just give ourselves a name. You know, a lot of singers do. Stevie Wonder's name is not Stevie Wonder. His birth name is not Stevie Wonder. There are a lot of singers who go under names that are not their birth names. So I had to look it up to find out that Morris Day, that's actually his name. So it wasn't some stage name or some stage persona that they came up with. That's his name. But as was the case with Prince, when Prince got into his riff with Warner Brothers, they owned the rights to his name. People didn't know. Even back then, a lot of people didn't know. They thought that Prince was just a stage name. That's his actual birth name. His name was Prince Rogers Nelson. So his actual name is Prince. He couldn't even use his own name. So now Morris Day is kind of going through a similar thing because the state is saying, according to Morris Day, that he can no longer use the name. So I'm gonna read a little bit of what Morris wrote when he issued out a statement. I'm gonna read a little bit of that to y'all, and then I'll get back into it. This is Morris Day's words about the situation, you know, and him not being able to use a name. He says, "I've given 40 years of my life to building up a name and legacy that Prince and I came up with. A name that when he was alive, meaning Prince, a name that when he was alive, he had no problems with me using." And I'll get into why he's saying that part. Morris Day says, "I literally put my blood, sweat, and tears into bringing value to that name." Goes on with some other stuff. Then said, "Prince booked me many times over the years under that name, coming to Paisley Park and performing." That was Prince's home where he had a concert venue and all that. "Not once told me that I couldn't use the name." Then it goes on to say, "The people who control his multi-million-dollar estate want to rewrite history by taking my name from me, thus impacting how I feed my family. So as of now, per the estate, I can no longer use Morris Day in the time in any capacity. Now, this is what y'all got to understand. When you sign to a record label, particularly a major label, they take or they attempt to take full ownership over you. So when you hear the terms image and likeness, those are very important terms in the record business and in a contract, because they are taking ownership of your image. That means that if you have a character that you just create, this is my persona that I create, it's really not who I am, but they own that image. They own the visual, the likeness, that's the visual of it. Anything resembling that, they own that. They can even sue if somebody tries to emulate or duplicate and it looks similar to that, where people can look at that and say, oh, he's trying to do. If I made up a fake Jordan logo, they may look at that and try to pursue it. They may not have a claim on it, but that's all tied into image and likeness and name. So when you are with a label, the record label will be like, hey man, this name belongs to us and blah blah blah. Don't even matter if it's your actual birth name that your mama gave you. They own it if you sign it over to them. See? So this is what Morris Day apparently went through when he came in under Prince, because Prince, it didn't take him long to kind of learn the ins and outs of the business, and kind of sometimes what we do is we will follow along the path of the label, how whatever steps we went through, however we were brought in. Once we start trying to branch out and do these things on our own, we'll bring people up sometimes under that same umbrella. Well, this is how it goes. It may not even be meant to be done maliciously. Maybe it'll work with this is the business. Business is business. So all that time, Prince had ownership of that name, Morris Day in the time. Naturally, he wrote the songs. You know, Prince was a prolific writer, producer, released albums. Prince allegedly, when he passed away, you know, everybody's heard about this famous vault of music that Prince had that allegedly had, some people say 2,000 songs in it. Some people have said more than that. I don't know, but there's thousands of unreleased songs and a lot of unreleased material. But Prince's estate owned Morris Day in the Times name. So now, according to Morris Day, seemingly out of the blue, now they're saying you can't use the name. Now the estate did come back and say, well, no, Morris's statement is not 100% accurate, but I didn't see any more detail. I didn't see them go into any details. But the key points that stood out to me in Morris's statement was when he said, this is a name that Prince had no problem with me using and booked me under that name many times while he was still alive. But also, he said, I don't want to misquote, so he said, they want to rewrite history by taking my name from me, thus impacting how I feed my family. That's the bone. That's the meat. That's the meat and potatoes of it right there, y'all. That's the meat and potatoes of it all. Because if you have a situation where you have built up a name, built up a brand, now that brand is something that people look for. That brand is something that people gravitate to. That brand is something that people have contributed to financially over decades. That brand represents your lifeline, your existence, the way you feed your family. So if that's taken away from you, people will say, well, oh man, people still, they know it's him, they know it's Morris. Nah, it's not the same. It's not the same, because I could just say, okay, well, I know I'm still Morris Day, and we can come under a different name. We can change our name and all this. But that marquee, when you see those names on a marquee, if you pass by a venue, they got a venue out in Houston called the Arena Theater. If you pass by the Arena Theater and you look at the venue and you see Morris Day and the time coming March the 15th, say, oh man, that automatically clicks with you. That automatically locks in with you. But they changed that name, man. Now you got to try to re-push that name and promote it and brand it and get people to understand what's going on. People, it's just a lot to do. And people who don't understand the business, they may not understand the reconfiguration of it all to where they'll say, well, man, that might not even be them. That could be somebody perpetrating like it's them. It's so many different thought processes that go into that. And also, you just don't want to give up something that, like he said, he put his blood, sweat, and tears into. It's like somebody trying to take your house. You bought your house 40 years ago, and you paid and paid and paid the mortgage and worked it, did all these repairs and improvements. You painted it, the foundation was bad, you got that fixed, and finally one day came, you paid the house off, and then all of a sudden something happens and somebody wants to come and take that house from you. You thinking about all that you put into it. It ain't just a house at this point. If it had happened 6 months after you bought it 30 years ago, then you would have fought for it, but maybe you wouldn't have been so emotionally connected to it. It's the same thing. So it begs the question, if the accusations are 100% accurate according to Morris' side of the story, why now? Why period? And who, if anybody else, could possibly be involved that's kind of pushing this? Because Prince had 6 siblings at the time of his passing. I think I read where one of them has passed since. 2 or 3 of them, including the one that has passed away, have already sold their portion of the publishing rights to Prince's music to a publishing company called Primary Wave. They've all, like 3 of the siblings already sold it. And I never understood why the family members do that. And I'm not saying it from a position of judging them, because we don't know, everybody's situation is different. But just knowing what I've come to learn and know about publishing rights, and what I would assume that Prince's family knows about publishing rights now, based on not only the fight that they saw their brother fight all those years, which I'm gonna get into, but just if you take ownership of something, if something is left to you as an inheritance, you're gonna naturally kind of want to know, well, what does this mean? That's how people get got. Because if somebody leaves, if somebody says, man, Uncle such and such died, and we went through his stuff, and he left this pencil right here, and you just think it's just a pencil, it's like, okay, well, just put it over there with the rest of the stuff. Then somebody says, well, okay, cool. Matter of fact, man, can I have that pencil, man? And you go, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, don't take it. You can have it. But you didn't know that this pencil had some kind of value to it, some kind of significance to it, that may be worth $1 million. You didn't know. So the person who took it, they knew. They understood the value of it. So with publishing, it could have been the same thing. It's like, okay, well, you got the publishing rights. You not only own the rights to the music and still get royalties and all that, but you own the publishing. Publishing represents perpetual, eternal income from this music, because a guy like Prince, somebody's playing Prince's music on some major radio station right now, all over the world. He's being heard somewhere right now. Now, since he's passed away, I've heard his music on TV commercials. All of his music is on YouTube now since he's passed away. He didn't allow that. He kept a lot of this stuff in check when he was alive. But now that he's gone, those who are remaining after you are gone, they may not, and in most cases, they don't have the same love for your stuff that you had. It don't mean as much to them. It's, in some cases, all it is money. It's just a dollar sign. It's like, whoo, how much was he worth? They estimated anywhere from $150 to $300 million what his estate was worth when he passed away. So sometimes family members just be like, how much? Ooh, all they thinking about is the money. They thinking about, man, I'm on easy street now. But the record labels and those who may have ownership in those things I named, ownership of the catalog, ownership of the publishing rights, ownership of the image and likeness and the name and all that, they thinking about money too, but they thinking about generational wealth. They're not looking at it like, well, we'll just cash out. We'll just cash out for 100 million. Okay, that's fine. You know, we have liquid. We have 100 million actual dollars. They don't look at it like that. They look at it like, okay, yeah, we're going to cash out in some areas, but what we really want that eternal money, because his catalog is going to generate way more than $100 million for the rest of the existence of life. See, that's what they looking at. So when the family sells so quick, when the family is so quick to sell, and again, I don't know people's situation, but I'm always disappointed when I see that, because again, you've taken this man's life work. This man lived, ate, slept, and drank music. His life was music. He bled music, and you have taken his life's work and just said, here you go. How much you gonna give me for it? Here you go. And I'm always one of those people I'm big on doing things. If something is placed in my custody, I've never had an inheritance in my life or anything, but if something is placed in my custody, my thought process is always centered around doing what the person who left it to me would want to be done with it, not what I want to do with it. See, instructions would have to hopefully be in place to say, okay, wait a minute now. Yeah, Prince is our brother, and he's gone. You know, I know we all family. You his sister, I'm his older brother, you his younger sister, younger brother, whatever. But now we got all this estate. We're in control of this. What would he want us to do? And if you never had the conversation about that, because again, he had no will, then you have to go just to logic. And you have to answer the question by asking another question. Well, how was he handling it when he was here? So obviously the way that he was handling it is the way he wanted it to be handled. So when he's gone, to just go in a totally different direction of what he would want, of how he would do it, it's a tough situation. And people will argue and say, well, he's not here no more. Ain't even nothing he worried about no more. I mean, you might as well, man. You know, them people need. Man, look, you've already received custody of it, and now you're set for the rest of your life. But to give it right back, see, I'm not big on these big labels and these big publishing companies and these people that come in and just exploit, and blood suck, and they get the rights back. To get that stuff and give it right back, man, in my eyes, it's a slap in the face to the person who built it. You wouldn't even have it if it wasn't for him. So Prince went through his own fight, which leads me back to Morris Day. Prince went through his own fight in the 90s with Warner Brothers because they owned his name. He couldn't use his name. And anybody who remembers, if you're old enough to remember back in them days, Prince had to abandon his own name. And he changed his name to a symbol that nobody still to this day has been able to pronounce. It was that symbol that resembled the Ankh. He called it the love symbol. But for that period of time, he was referred to, if he came on a talk show, if he dropped a record, if he was performing, he was introduced as the artist formerly known as Prince, because he couldn't legally use his own name. And again, Prince was his birth name. So this just me. I find it really hard to believe, and I ain't got to be right, but I find it hard to believe that an individual who went through that type of fight for his name and his image and his likeness and all of and his catalog, his very catalog, I would find it hard to believe that a person would co-sign doing that to somebody else, especially somebody that he brought up in the game and came up in the game with. Now, let me say this. The ownership of the name Morris Day in the time, okay, if Prince formed that and he created that, I can understand why he may legally have the legal ownership of it, that name, that brand. I get that part because that's the business side of it. But as Morris Day stated, it never stopped Prince from allowing him to still do his thing. Prince didn't make any money off of Morris Day in the time performing and doing shows long after they had split. They had split. They weren't even speaking for a time. That was a time where Prince and Morris Day, they weren't even talking. They weren't even messing with each other like that. But Prince never intervened or interfered with them touring and doing shows as Morris Day in the time, and they made their money. And I feel like part of that was because Prince just may have understood, like, I'm not gonna block they bread like that. Yeah, I own the name. I could pull the plug, but I ain't gonna do that. You know, and I understand it. I respect that, because in business, you got to protect yourself. You know, these if you start a label, no label owner is starting up a record label to just not make any money for themselves. No person is bringing up an artist to not make any money for themselves off of that artist. That's the nature of the business. But when you totally exploit and just basically just ravage the artist, just rape the artist and just take everything and don't give nothing, you giving them crumbs, and just that's not good business. That ain't good business at all. So they use that name for decades. They hadn't worked together in decades, but they still use the name. So why now? Why now is it impossible for them to use that name? Prince even went so far in the 90s, when he was going through his fight, he wrote slave on the side of his face. That's why I don't believe, based on what we saw, I don't believe that Prince would approve of that. The Hungry Joe, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate your donation. I appreciate the love, man. Thank you so much for that love and that blessing. Are you performing at the rodeo? No, sir. I won't be at the rodeo. I will be supporting my brothers from the H Town and Bun B from Port Arthur who are on that build. I will be supporting them, from a distance, from wherever I sit, and celebrating the fact that they are some of the pillars and cornerstones of hip hop in the city that have helped to elevate it to a level where they can get on a platform like that and be seen, and also to make a lot of people mad who may be upset that they own that they own the rodeo. That they got those rappers up there for. Yeah, we here. But that's right, King Khufu, the artist formerly known as Prince. See, your name, man, sometimes your name is all you got. And when you have built yourself up through that name has now created circumstances that allow you to eat forever. March Day got to be in his 60s. But what if you are an artist who you didn't write the songs, you just performed them? So you don't own the publishing. Publishing is just money that you make. This is publishing. Let me show y'all what publishing royalties is. It's this right here. This is publishing right here. What am I doing? I'm just chilling. When you establish your publishing early on, you make money without even doing that. Because everywhere that song plays, it's generating revenue. And you just at home doing it. And all of a sudden, whoa, publishing check came in today. 58,000. Wow. I haven't performed. I recorded this song in 1972. That's publishing. That's what the big labels understand. That's what they've always hid from us since our entrance into the music business, as long as you can remember when there was a music business. They've always hid that from us. Now, here's the thing. They always beat us out of just regular royalties. So what's the difference between publishing and royalties and sales royalties? Just a simple difference. Sales royalties is you buy this CD, you went and bought this album, you bought this CD. I know it's a flyer, but act like it's a CD. You bought this CD from the record store, and I get a percentage of that sale. That's what your royalties are for as far as record sales. Publishing royalties is, again, when you hear that song on the radio all day, that song that you hate that they play 88 times a day on the radio. When they play that song 80 something times a day in every major city, every city in the country, that adds up to publishing. And that money is huge. And the money is forever, because once I buy the album, I got it. We all got albums that we went and bought 2 or 3 times because your CD got scratched. Somebody broke in your car and stole it. You loaned it to your homeboy and he didn't give it back. So you had to go buy it again. We got that, but you only going to only get so many purchases off of an actual physical copy. You only going to get so many purchases off of this. Sometimes you don't get but that one. But those radio spins, those plays on the radio, you got the right type of hit record or a classic record. Shh, don't care if that song was made in 1960. Somebody's playing it right now and it's generating revenue. So the solution to this problem for all artists, because Morris Day, he don't deserve that. He don't deserve to be treated like that. If indeed this is what's going on. This man is a legend. This man is an icon. This man has contributed, whether he wrote the songs or not. He performed the song. He's contributed some of the greatest songs ever. Especially if you black, if you, bro. There's certain groups, man. It's like Morris Day in the Time, Earth, Wind and Fire, Frankie Beverly Mays, Ozzy Brothers. Certain groups that just can't tell me nothing. What? Who? The Gap Band? What? Am I naming groups that y'all never heard of before? Y'all need to do y'all homework. So, at the end of the day, this is the importance of learning the business. I don't care if you're 15 years old or 65 years old. This is the importance of learning the business, understanding what you are not willing to give up when you coming in the door. And as I said earlier, the biggest problem is that we be so scared coming in that we're gonna lose the deal. Oh man. You got a group. It's three of y'all. We in a group together. And in a group dynamic, you're gonna always have different personalities. So you got the person that's focused on the business side. You got the one that's just glad to be in the group. He don't care what happened. He just want to be on stage and he just want to be seen and take the pictures. And you may have another type of personality in the group, but sometimes one of the personalities may know who's the rebellious one. And, man, don't go in this office talking crazy to these people, man. You're going to blow this deal for us. And he looking at you like, dude, I'm not finna let nobody just take advantage of us. We're not just going to sign no anything, because the majority of recording artists sign bad deals. The deal is never going to lean in favor of the artist. That's not the nature of the structure itself. Never going to lean towards the artist. That's not how it works. So you have to come in, if that's the world you want to be in, you got to come in negotiating hard and strong. And if you understand the game and say, well, you know what? I know the nature of the game. I know that they gonna, in the end, they gonna get a lot more than I get out of it. But I'm gonna fight like hell to get more than the average person gets. And I'm gonna get in there and just get to a point where I can establish myself to where I can get what I can, build my name up, and get out and go independent. So many artists come into the game and they are 100% products of industry. They are industry constructed. Their whole image, everything they know is machine manufactured, right? When I say machine, I mean this the industry, this business. So when they go through their processes of being the biggest stars or whatever, and that light dims out, and now they're not even on the label, they may lose a deal, or just the contract ends and doesn't get renewed, they never sign with another label. They don't show the ability to use that power that they built up all those years and just say, okay, well, you know what? I'm actually free now. I don't even have to try to re-up with another label, because everybody in the world knows me. Everybody knows me. I've built up a following enough to where I can just, boom, through the use of social media and whatever means, man, I can build my own thing up, sell my own music on my own, and make more. Because now you're getting full profit. But we get so caught up in industry, like, bro, no, I'm not on Universal no more, man. Let me see if I can call Capitol Records to see if they'll take me now. No, you passing yourself around. You letting the industry run a train on you. They running a business train on you. And you trying to get passed around. Who wants some next? Nah, man. Once they get you there one time, that should be your training ground. That should be your thing of saying, you know what? I learned a lot from getting messed over. That's anything in life. You learn your biggest lessons from getting messed over. At least you should. Some people be in bad relationships. Oh, man. Sister, the dude did you so bad, or brother, the female did you so bad. That should be a lesson. But some of us jump right back in the same situation with a totally different person and get done the same way over and over again. That's how a lot of these artists are. That's how a lot of us are. So we got to come into the game on some ownership. You seeing, I made these videos before, videos that y'all don't watch. I've made videos where I talk about certain artists who it took them 30 years to finally get the ownership of their master recordings back. Because they, in the beginning, the contract they signed didn't line up in favor of anything. I mean, the slightest, it's one thing to say, well, man, you know, the label is going to own the majority, but we negotiated to where we at least get such and such a percentage. It's like, nothing. And by the time you figure it out, you done already signed, or you ain't popping like you once was. You ain't hot as you used to be. Go, Professor. I appreciate the love, man. I appreciate the love, man. Thank you so much. Go, Professor. Yeah, that was actually, that wasn't Face. That was actually that was Jukebox and Raheem. That was Jukebox and Raheem. They came. Y'all got to get my book. I talk about the Scarface thing, but me and Face never battled. I tried to battle when I was young and crazy. See? So Mars Day is in a, oh, I don't want to use the word scary position. I don't want to use the word scary, but it can be a scary thing, because when this is what you do and this is all you do, and something seemingly comes along that snatches the rug, snatches the foundation off from under you, and like he said, this is how I feed my family. Not necessarily dropping new albums. See, you don't see a lot of old school artists putting out new music. You don't see it like that. You don't see the release pattern like it once was back in their heyday. But what you do still see, you see a lot of shows. They touring all year round. So if you Mars Day at a time, man, I'm just guessing. I'm just throwing some numbers out there. They may still do 30, 40 shows a year. It may make a couple $1 million a year touring. I'm guessing. I don't know. But you ain't doing it for free. And if you're not releasing no music, and look, let me put this in perspective for y'all so y'all understand where Mars Day is coming from. If he's not releasing music, just putting out albums like he did back in the days, If he doesn't own the rights to the music, the catalog and all that, and if he does not own the publishing rights, that's three of the 4 or 5 categories that it is to generate revenue. The fourth is shows, concerts. That's where he is. So in essence, that's probably his main source of income right now at this stage and at this part of his career. He making show money, which through the popularity of the group that he is in is possibly still some real good money. So I guess it can, in a way, be kind of scary if somebody comes along out the blue and says, well, maybe not, well, oh, by the way, can't call yourself Morris Day in the time no more. Y'all artists out there, get your name registered, man. Get your name licensed. Take ownership of your name from day one. Don't let these labels take ownership of your name. Don't do it. Just don't do it, man. Because some record labels are spiteful. You know, they're vindictive. When you start to wake up and understand how this thing operates and you move on, your contract can end. Some people might say, you know what, man, or the contract may not end, but you may get out the deal some kind of way or something like that, or you may breach. You might just say, man, I'm gone. I ain't doing that. You try. They'll come back and say, okay, you can be gone, but you better not release nothing under that name. You better not be performing nowhere under that name, because all that you do under that name is gonna come right back to us. That's the nature of this thing that we in, man. Let me see what y'all talking about, man. Some of y'all might be like, man, what is this dude talking about? Who is Morris Day? King Khufu. George Clinton was just here in New Orleans a week ago. Then you went on to say George doesn't own his masters, so he has a tour. Yeah. And see, and that's the sad reality, what you just said. Damn near 80 years old. Now let me say this, because there are a lot of old school artists, they still enjoy doing shows. They still enjoy touring. They 65, 70, 80 years old. If they're able, they still enjoy it. For some, it's an absolute necessity just to survive and pay bills. Because for some, they don't want to just be out there traveling like that. It's wear and tear. Traveling is hard, man. Traveling like that consistently is hard for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, airport to airport, riding in road to road, riding in vans. Some of these guys go all the way back to riding in vans with the whole label in one van, and hotel to hotel, motel to motel. That's a grind, man. Take it from me, I know. So a lot of artists are only touring and doing shows like that because they don't have the money. So a lot of these other artists who are still doing well, if you Elton John or somebody like that, Paul McCartney or somebody, you've been indoctrinated in a way that, yeah, the label ate off of you, but they still made sure that you did pretty good. Or they may have made sure that they did pretty good. I can't question their knowledge of the business. But those individuals, you go pull up their network. See, What King Khufu was saying, think about it. You go pull up their net worth. Go pull up Elton John's net worth. Somebody do it now and tell me what Elton John is worth. Somebody tell me what Paul McCartney is worth. Then tell me what George Clinton is worth. Is Paul McCartney's music any better than George Clinton's music? You can name other artists. But it's about the business more so than it is about the talent. Zawaji Muhammad, are they trying to stop the phrase the time? Yeah, he can't use none of that. The name of the group, well, I remember the name being the time back in the early days. I don't know if they changed it to Morris Day and the Time, but that's what I saw in the article. And under that, Morris Day is claiming that he can't use Morris Day all the time. Morris Day and the Time, he can't use it. That's his claim. See? So certain artists tour because they just sit around one day and like, sitting in their mansion or their beach house. Man, I'm missing the road. I think I'll do some concerts. Elton John live. I got another tour in me. They do it because they choose to do it. They don't do it because they have to do it. You broke down on stage. You can't hardly even come out there. You can't remember the words to the songs no more. This is how they do us. And we have to make sure that we don't do that to ourselves. See? See what y'all talking about, man. See, I'm a different kind of animal, man, because I understand this business. Trust me. Trust me. I ain't been doing this for a 40 piece and didn't get nothing out of it. And I ain't been doing this for a 40 piece and just going through the motions. Ain't took no hits. It ain't all been peaches and cream. So Elton John is worth $500 million, according to the net worth, and George Clinton is at $4 million. And I know what some people might, oh man, $4 million, that ain't bad. Do you know the kind of catalog that George Clinton and Parliament and Funkadelic got? And again, I don't care if you're an Elton John fan. That's fine. But in the totality, and everything is preference. I understand preference. But his music ain't $500 million to $4 million. It ain't that much of a discrepancy in terms of the music, the art. It's a discrepancy in terms of the deal structures and the path that they took, the business paths that they might have taken. That's all it is. That's all it is, man. I watched the Bob Ross documentary on Netflix. Sad story of being on. I didn't know they had a Bob Ross documentary. I'm gonna watch that. Don't tell me nothing about it, Mike. Don't tell me nothing about it. Man, Bob Ross, that's my dude. Watch Bob Ross 2 or 3 times a week now. Paul McCartney is worth 800 million. See? We know he was with the Beatles. Paul McCartney took some hits, but he's still worth 800 million, still worth almost $1 billion. $750 million. His music ain't no better than the Isley Brothers' music. Can't sing better than Teddy Pendergrass. Would you call it new age gotcha? No, it's old age gotcha. They've been getting us since back in the Gap. This is not new. None of this is new, man. You know how many people have put their children's children through college off of the money that was generated off of black artists from 100 years ago? See? See if y'all gonna drop some bombs on me, man. Angelina is saying 8 million. Did you leave some zeros off, Angelina? I know Paul McCartney is worth more than $8 million. Way more than 8 million. I'm gonna go with the 800 million that I saw earlier. Because in a lot of cases, you know, they look out for their own. Christian says Prince was a smart businessman also. Yeah, he grew into it. Prince took some hits. Like I said, that's why I'm on this thing about March Day, because it's like, it's hard for me to believe that Prince would allow that to be happening, because he hadn't allowed it in the time that he was living, because he'd been through it. So there are two ways that you can go when you are an abused person. When you have been an abused person, you're gonna move forward in two ways after that. You either are going to become an abuser yourself, or you're gonna take the opposite. Man, I'm not gonna never do nobody the way I got did. So in the music business, there are artists who just got bent over. And I've seen it happen on an independent level right here in Houston. I've seen people got, not just in Houston, but I've seen people got by the labels. And then they turn around and start up their own label, and they start doing artists the same way that the label did them, instead of saying, well, man, I'm gonna be an agent of change, and I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna show the way it should be done. But some people are like, they got me, I'm gonna get them. Not the way to think. See? Looking for some bombs, man. See if y'all gonna drop some bombs on me today. The Purple Sub song by itself is worth 8 million. The OG Triple X, he said our spending habits. That is a factor. Because what we can't do is put all the blame on the industry. Because sometimes when we get a little money, we run right through it. Whether it be buying dope and drugs, whether it be blowing it on cars and strip clubs and jewelry. But even with that, if somebody is worth 500, $600 million, it should still be very difficult for them to blow all that compared to if they made sure that you only got 2 million, that can go a whole lot quicker when you really should have gotten. You should be up there. Hold on, Emil Cruz is saying Paul McCartney is worth 1.2 billion. And either way, same thing. See? So I'm hoping that they reach a solution that would allow Mars Day to continue to perform, and if he chooses to, release music under the name Mars Day and the Time. Hoping that they do that. Because that's how the man feeds his family. The devils do the swine song. Jason Who says, the more higher, the more slavery. Trust me. If I say anything against the order, my candle gets put out. Yeah, that's a fact. Because the higher you go, it's not always it's not always because you were just so great. You are allowed to get into that space, to that height. They let you get there under conditions. There are certain conditions. There are certain conversations that you can't participate in. There are certain people that you can't mention or be seen with, i.e. Farrakhan. There are certain causes that you are not allowed to stand up for. See? Yeah. Shout out to Mars Day. Shout out to Prince. And again, I hope this gets solved, man. It's heartbreaking, man. I'm big fans of all of them, so I don't like to see that kind of riff going on. And I like for the family members to maintain the vision of the family member that passed away. And I never met Prince, don't know Prince personally, but I feel like I have an understanding of what he would want, because again, I'm gonna base it off of how he was moving when he was alive. The way a person moves tells you where their head is at. You would never saw none of Prince music on YouTube when he was alive, on TV commercials. You never saw it. He never allowed himself to be what he believed to be exploited like that. And if you're not in the music business and you're watching this live right now, let me explain something to you. Whatever it is you're trying to do, you better establish ownership of yourself from the outset. It ain't just about the music business. Whatever it is you're trying to do, your little business you're trying to open up, establish ownership. I don't care if it's investors. Don't let, okay, man, oh, he got that money, man. I'm going to have to figure out a way. Man, don't let them people, don't sell yourself out for no money. Speak on what it is you want. And like Mr. Farrakhan say, negotiate from a position of strength. If you lose a deal, it wasn't meant for you to have. You don't go and be disrespectful, but you just tell people what you want and what you're not gonna give up. Nah, I ain't giving that up, bro. Not giving that up of myself. That's too much. That's a part of what they say called reading the fine print. Man, in these days and times, the print ain't even fine and small no more. People are willing to give it all. No, man, I'm looking at the thing saying, I'm giving up ownership of my name, likeness, and image. Okay. You don't realize the devastating effects of that until those effects visit you. This music industry is satanic. Wasn't gonna hold y'all long, man. Peace and blessings.